live. In studio, Laura. Well, first of all, on a personal note, it is an absolute pleasure to see you in person at the studio. And then from the show's perspective, thank you for taking the time to come on for a second time.
I'm excited to be here. And there's a reason I'm coming on for a second time, because the first time was fantastic. And I wasn't lying when I said it was one of the best conversations I've ever had. So, no, I was happy when you reached out. And I'm glad to be here. And I love Brooklyn.
In New York City.
Yes.
Back in New York City. So you were telling me, well, you were here obviously when you were working, when you were younger. How many years did you live here?
I lived here 2 years.
Okay. Do you consider yourself partially a New Yorker?
I mean, I feel like I'm kind of a poser if I do that, because like the real
You
New
might get
Yorkers would
yelled
be
at.
like, no.
I might actually
But there was
say
a
that.
minute where I was heading that direction. You know, I knew my way around all the subways. Like I had the city tricks. It takes a while to pick up on the tricks.
If I dropped you in the middle of Brooklyn, could you get back to the city with ease and without GPS?
Right now with ease, probably not.
Okay.
Probably not. But
Back then.
in Manhattan, when I lived there, I would have been fine. And yeah, I just remember when I first moved there and I set up my apartment. This is because I'm coming from the Midwest,
Yes.
where there's a giant parking lot and you just drive up your huge SUV to Target and you buy half a Target and you load it in your big ass car and you drive it to the big giant streets home to your giant house and whatever. And so I had this teeny tiny studio apartment in Manhattan, but I needed to get I had just moved there. So I needed ketchup and salt and pepper and all the stuff you need to outfit your kitchen. So I loaded up at the grocery store. And then I was like, oh, I don't have a car. And it was before I learned the trick of every place will deliver anything you ever need at any hour of the day in New York. But I didn't know that. So I was carrying these bags of groceries, three long blocks, not the short blocks, the long
Big
blocks,
avenues.
the east-west blocks. And I would walk 100 feet and then set it down. And it was the dead of winter. And it was and I was like, this is so hard. Why am I here?
But that's a real New Yorker thing.
It is.
I remember seeing my mom do the same exact thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And as a result, in the Midwest, I'm no two-trip bitch. When I come home from the grocery store, I'm like, I can get it all in the house in one trip.
No, it's all about the one trip. It's
Yep.
all about but now you have your car. You have a nice one at that too.
I do, yes.
I saw that your husband
Yes.
spoiled you.
He did.
It's a white G-Wagon.
Is a white G-Wagon, the brand new one.
What were you riding before?
I have an Audi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
A6. It
it's
was
not like
certainly
you're
not
going
a
from,
no.
bad
It was
to
yeah.
great.
It was a good car. It was a good car.
And you like the G-Wagon?
I love it. I'd been eyeing it for a while. A lot of people are like, oh, they're overrated, and maybe.
They are?
No. They're not overrated. Maybe they're slightly overpriced, but I love it. It rides great. They changed a lot of it. It's not the old G-Wagon. It's a daily driver now. There's cup holders. There's, the suspension's nice. They made the back seat, reasonably big. I love it.
Was there a special occasion for that?
Not really. I think I'd just been wanting one for a while, and no, there was no occasion. There was no occasion. My husband likes to say it was okay. This is your birthday, Mother's Day,
use that.
Valentine's
Yeah,
Day,
yeah.
And I was like, wait, is this retroactive or is this?
Oh, he's got the next 4 years too, yeah.
I don't know. We still need to figure that out, but
Well, I guess you'll find out next year.
yeah, I mean, I partially paid for it too,
Okay.
so the money's shared. So
There you
let's
go.
not call it.
Is there a little something, perhaps, that the world does not know about you just quite yet?
Oh, something that the world
Well,
does
first
not know.
I'm gonna quiz
Okay,
you.
all right, go for it. I like
Do
quizzes.
you remember what you said last time you were on the show virtually?
Was it the story about how I think I maybe got the job? Okay.
Although you did share that.
I don't know.
It's a little, I'll give you a hint. It's a little trick that you're able to do.
With my legs? Feet?
Yeah.
Feet? Yeah.
You can do
I
some-
mentioned that?
Yeah. You can do some reverse.
Yeah, I can turn my
And you
feet
might
all the way
have to show me
backwards.
later.
I can probably show
Let's
you
see,
now.
let's see.
It's easier to
Well, the
do
camera- the
and I
camera-
can get the traction. This is so gross. I can't believe you're making me do this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you're like, you can't get heel
Yeah,
hooked.
I can't get heel hooked. But first off, it's really unattractive.
How'd you find out that you could do such
Well,
things?
I was born with hip dysplasia.
Oh.
So I was in a brace. Well, this could be the thing, I guess. I was in a brace for the first, I don't know, I don't remember, but 8 months of my life, I guess, in where they had my legs in a frog position.
Really?
I guess, I think what it is like my hip socket was too shallow. So like my hips could have come in and out of socket too easily. And they take the baby's hips and like shove it into the socket to make the socket deeper and more round. But I guess it just gave me like extra flexibility in my hips and knees somehow. I don't know. It's weird.
So I assume you've never been heel hooked successfessly?
No. At least not. You can
can't
go
tell
the
your
other
opponents.
way. You can go the other way. But that, yeah, like a normal heel hook, it's pretty hard to do to me.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. But it makes me, I mean, I run like an absolute idiot. Like my running mechanics are horrible.
Really?
Yeah. I have too much flexibility. Like waist down, there's just, I don't have like, you watch like a really graceful runner and they have this beautiful stride.
Not graceful.
Oh God, no. It's so bad. It's so bad.
We're just in the outskirts of Kansas City.
Yeah.
No one can see you.
Well, except all the people driving by. And I tried to run track in high school and it was just like, don't do that.
Well, I never asked you, was there, after New York, or why did you move back to Kansas City?
So, if you'll remember, you were probably 12. Actually, I think you were younger. Oh my God, now
When
I'm
was
doing
it?
the math. It was 08. Oh.
I was 8.
Oh God, you were 8. Well, you don't remember because you were in second grade. But 2008 was not a great time to be starting a company. So, not to say that's the only reason that it didn't take off like wildfire, but yeah, it was a tough time to be launching a company, especially here in New York. So the company didn't do what we wanted it to do, and which was fine. That's the startup life. And so I moved back home, and I still worked in the sort of startup world, venture capital world for a while when I moved back to Kansas City, which is how I met my husband, because he's an angel investor among many other things. So yeah, that's why I moved back.
And then ever since you're happy with that decision?
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I think the most gangster shit on earth that you do is Tuesday night you'll be at the Contender Series, maybe like Wednesday early morning, you got boots up.
Yeah.
Like I think it's milking your cattle or cow. I'm not a big animal guy, so excuse me if the terminology is off. Your goat or is like some. You're with your animals.
No, yeah.
Like deep in the weeds in the mud.
Yeah. So we have cattle. They're not dairy cattle, which is nice because when you have dairy cattle, that is like a daily. They need to be milked every day.
Okay.
Obviously the big farms have the machines that do that, but no. But we do have a couple of bottle calves. That's what you're thinking of. We have a couple of calves. One whose mom died, and one whose mom was just like, I don't like you. I'm not taking you. So we have a couple of calves right now that need to be given bottles a couple times a day. And yeah.
I think for me though, I think that is, it's also like the most humbling thing. Or I mean, you could probably speak to it as well. It's like you're on these big platforms, obviously, and then you come home and it's just like, well, no one's gonna take care of. Like I gotta.
I have a story for you actually.
Tell me.
Well, did I tell you my Snoop Dogg story in relation to the cattle? I think I already told you that one.
Not in relation to the cattle.
No, I didn't.
Well, I don't know if you even told me that story. I do remember, like, Snoop was a fan of yours.
Well, I mean, that's a stretch, but thank you for saying that. He knew my name.
Didn't you guys, like, kick it back and, like,
like, there was one time where after the show, and I did tell that story on your show, but after the show, we hung out with a big group of people, but it was the next day that was so funny because I'm not a big goer outer, but that night, I mean, I made an exception. And so,
do you smoke weed?
I don't.
But did you smoke
But I
weed?
did then. Just the
like,
one.
See, I don't smoke weed, but I've never smoked weed. But if I was with Snoop Dogg, I might.
That's
have to make
what
the
happened.
exception.
That is what happened. Yeah. But what's really funny about it is that is a very Bill Clinton moment, and you probably don't even get that reference.
No, I don't.
But it was essentially.
Like I know who Bill Clinton is, but the Bill Clinton moment.
He had this very. Oh God, I feel so fucking old right now.
Sorry.
He had this very famous line when he was campaigning because back then it was like, we found out that you smoke weed. You're a terrible person. You can't be our president. Right. And he was like, well, I didn't inhale. And it was, I kind of didn't because I was so worried. I was like, I don't know how this will affect me. So it was like the lamest attempt.
What if you're sick with Snoop?
Exactly. So anyway, the next day I got home and my husband had to leave town for some reason. So he called me like as I'm landing in Kansas City. He's like, hey, just so you know, when you get to the house, you need to go right out to the pasture because one of the cows is having trouble. And, you might have to call the vet. You might have to help this cow give birth or whatever. And I did. It was a whole mess. It was a whole day-long ordeal. The vet that they sent out was too small. Like, she was my size, and her calf jack wasn't working. So I just remember, like, at one point looking down, and I'm helping her pull this calf, and like I still have my fake eyelashes on from the night before. I have the stamp from the club and afterbirth all over. Like, it's just the juxtaposition of like television, Las Vegas, UFC life, and then back to the farm, you know?
Do you feel like it humbles you?
Yeah. I mean, if I'm being perfectly honest, like don't have this vision of like, oh, she's up at dawn and like, you know, shucking hay and like mucking stalls. It's not like that. We live on 150 acres. We have about 35 head of cattle and their calves. But for the most part, they don't need like day-to-day care other than what I said about the calves that we have that are on bottles right now. We do have a pretty intensive like grazing system where we move them a lot, but that's really easy to do with a four-wheeler. And my husband does it most of the time. And it takes like 15, 20 minutes a day. So don't picture me. Please don't
just
picture me.
with the mud and all.
Yeah,
and
she's
like,
up at 4 a.m.
Okay.
No, that's not.
I'm giving you too much credit.
You're a little bit too much, yeah.
Do you ever miss the city life of New York?
I do.
Really?
Yes, yeah. I would never want to, I mean, I love New York. I personally would never want to raise a family here. It would be really I mean, the logistics were tricky just being an individual. I mean, I can't, let alone like car seats, and I don't know how people do it here.
I don't know. That's all I know.
Yeah. So, and I only know the opposite. So obviously people figure it out. There's a lot of people that get raised here. I loved it. I loved it for the time I was here. And I do miss, like when I came back last night was when I got in, just the energy of the city and the fact that there's always something open, always something to do. Yeah. But it's also a hard place to live logistically. Yeah. Like there's just, everything takes a lot of planning and effort, and even getting here it's a thing.
We're planning 54th and 6th, and he's on 54th and you're on 6th, and there's traffic. Yeah. The whole shebang.
Yeah.
But speaking of, you must be exhausted. Like, I'm honest. Well, first, I am eternally grateful because the fact that to come here and to do that means a lot to me. But on top of that, when you think about like your last, 5-6 months. Yeah. And you're traveling and like you just flew in just from Vegas, straight from Vegas.
I did, yeah.
From the last day of Contender Series to now it's 268, and it's like, it's one thing to be physically exhausted, but mentally, I imagine it's as well, no?
Yes, yeah. It's really just sort of that turning the page from fight to fight. I can't study multiple cards at one time. Right. So during Contender Series season, it's just week by week. And some people will be like, oh, I'm fighting on week 8. And I'll be kind of embarrassed. I'm like, I have no idea. I haven't looked at week 8. I kind of don't want to know about week 8 because we're on week 6.
But if you have a Saturday and then a Tuesday, you're only starting to like Sunday.
Yeah.
And how do you, I wanted to ask you, how do you prep for, especially those Contender Series fights, where there's not a lot of footage on most of these individuals?
I have, over the years, honed the skills of scouring the dark web and finding footage. You learn little tricks like if you want to find certain Brazil footage or footage in China, you have to have a VPN on. Oh. And then you get different.
Which VPN do you use?
Nord.
Big on Nord.
Or what's the Shark?
I don't know that one. I only use
Nord. Nord's a good one.
That's interesting.
Because then different stuff comes up on YouTube.
And the UFC doesn't. There's not like one person in charge of like getting footage.
Once you're like, if we're calling fight nights, then yes, they will actually send out a link to the 3 most recent fights of whoever. And if the footage exists on Fight Pass, of course, it's really easy to find. So if it's LFA, super easy. But this year of Contender Series, we had so many Russian and Chinese and Brazilian fighters, and some of the smaller promotions that aren't on Fight Pass don't put their stuff up on Facebook. But I'm pretty good at finding stuff. I'm pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. It's a skill.
But mentally, have you, like, I'm sure there's part of you that's a little bit relieved that now you're gonna have a little time off with regards to Contender Series.
Yes. I mean, I say that, and 2 weeks from now, I'm gonna be like, I miss it so much, and I just want to go back. And I will, because this season was so special, for a number of obvious reasons. It was just great, but yeah, I'm ready for a break, because the amount of information and I overstudy, right? Because I want to. I'd rather have 100 pieces of information and end up using 3 than having, not enough. I would hate to not tell someone's story. Even when you're talking about their fighting game is part of their story. Like talking about their career trajectory up to that point, their tendencies, all that stuff. So even when you're breaking down film, to me, that's still telling the story of that fighter. And I want to tell it as accurately as I can. So I probably overstudy, honestly.
Well, I think it's also because you're a professional, a real professional. No?
And because I'm just like an A-type, and I've always been that way. It was just, that's how I was in school and college and everything, so.
Well, I also want to, and so for people who don't watch either A, the UFC, or B, the Contender Series.
Yeah.
And you're humble and you won't say it, but you were the first color commentator in Zuffa UFC history this past season.
Yeah.
First female, excuse me.
Yeah.
Color commentator in Zuffa UFC. Is it Zuffa or Zuffa?
Zuffa,
It's
yeah.
Zuffa, right? And I was privileged enough to be there on that night.
Which was so crazy.
Which was crazy for a lot of reasons, because if people didn't listen to the last time that you were here, you very candidly spoke and manifested being a color commentator in the UFC, for the UFC. And I think for me it was just awesome because of like the sequence of events that happened that day or that day before, and it made that moment, you could feel that there was something special in that moment. And when I was sitting, and I think I texted you this before or during, Dana was like maybe like completely parallel to me. And right when they started the broadcast, now I could be speculating or I could be reaching, but he did put on the headphones, and that was the only time, and he doesn't usually do it. And he was really, and you could see the TV in front of him, and it was right when they kind of showed you, and I think it was maybe Dan Helly who was doing play-by-play.
Yep.
Introduced you, because I had to rewatch it because I couldn't hear it. And I think that whole night was just so special. And for me, a moment that I'll genuinely always remember is, well, the day before when you called me to let me know that was happening, because that was awesome for me. On a personal level, just to see you realize that dream. But also on that night, you hadn't had time to check social media, because for people that don't know, you literally did everything. Like,
it was so much.
I'll explain exactly what that looked like from the sides.
Yeah.
But I got to show you kind of Dana's post and the UFC's post about you being the first color commentator.
Yeah.
And I think I'll always remember that moment. And, as a friend and as someone who's rooting for you in every way, it was just awesome to be a part of that. So I imagine it was quite memorable for you as well, that night in general.
It was. I wish I could have bottled it up to, take little sips of throughout the rest of my life. But as many things are with those big moments, like it's there and then it's gone. And not that it's gone, but like the moment leaves pretty quickly, right? And you're like on to the next thing. So it's fun to have moments like this where I can kind of relive it. So thank you. Yeah, the whole thing was wild. And it's so funny that I feel like throughout, not that you and I I was going to say throughout a relationship, we don't have a relationship. I know you on Instagram, and I've been on your show a couple times, and like we chit chat here and there, but I feel like you've always popped up at these times when either right before or right after something really, really big and important to me happened. So it is funny, like you're very much associated with these moments. And then that first conversation that you and I had, and I clipped it, I want to say Dana, like I put it on my Instagram, and I want to say Dana commented on it, or either that or he sent it to me, and it was like, this is badass. That's kind of his standard, like, this is badass, because I was reliving the first time I met him working in Invicta, when I just sort of was like, hey, I'm going to work for you one day. So yeah, it's crazy to have that. And then, a few years later, obviously I worked for him, but then I had another time where I was just like, hey, and I told him, like, I'm going to be the first female, which was ludicrous for me to say at the time. It really was ludicrous. And then it happened. Almost. I still feel like there's an asterisk. That's the problem.
Well, we can talk about that after. But I will say, and I don't know if you mind me sharing this, and if you don't, we'll cut it. But you did say, when you called me the day before, you had kind of told me about this, I don't want to say frustration, but maybe like go thinking about, am I ever going to be that, which I know is a huge goal for you.
Yeah.
And how, if I well remember almost word for word what you told me on the phone, was basically that like you had this moment, I think flying to Vegas for that first Contender Series, where you kind of like put your hands or your head in your hands.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like either A, trying to manifest it, or B, just like down about the situation. And then in reality, you kind of manifested.
It's a real thing. And it's the craziest version of it. Because I'll be honest, like I almost feel weird talking about it because I've watched the movie The Secret and all that stuff. And sometimes part of me is like, wow, this is amazing. Sometimes I'm like, this is so, I'm not going to say dumb, but like, it just, like, no. Like, but part of my brain is just like, that didn't happen like that. The cynical part of me. So, but I do definitely believe in the power of positive thinking. And to whatever degree that edges toward, the far ends of like, you can just magically manifest stuff. I don't know, but definitely the power of positive thinking and the power of gratitude, I think. So yeah, I was maybe frustrated is not the right, disappointed. I was disappointed that I wasn't going to be calling fights this season because that had been my near-term goal. I was like, okay, if I can do the stuff on LFA and kick it out and hit it out of the park, which I felt like I kind of had, then it will just be a natural thing to be like, hey, I'm calling these guys fights here. How about you?
Did you expect a call?
I didn't expect. I was really wanting. But there's a huge chasm between wanting and having sometimes, right? And again, like whenever I share these stories, it's not, I don't ever want to give the impression that the people above me or around me at the UFC weren't supportive of this. It's a big leap to take someone. They've never taken someone from a reporter role and transition them into an analyst / commentating role. It's never been done, male or female.
Also because...
Except John Gooden, but he's a play-by-play, so it's different.
Well, also because technically, like your career with the UFC is, you started it was 2015 or 2016, right? So it's also a very short time. And it's not like you were previously a broadcaster for 15 years.
Exactly. So yes, all of those things. But that being said, I'd been involved in every episode of the Contender Series. And so to me, it was the most natural place to like do that if they're ever going to do it. And it just in that moment, it felt like, well, this is just never going to happen, because if it was going to happen, it was going to happen then. And so I packed my bags going to Las Vegas to be a reporter like I always am. And I love my job. I love it very, very much. It's just not the end. It's just not the end all for me. And I don't even know why I did it, to be honest with you. I was like, you know what? I'm going to pack a blazer just in case. And the joke I've always told myself in my head, even in Abu Dhabi, I did that. I was like, well, if Paul Felder gets horrible diarrhea, I'm here, guys. Not that I wish that on you, Paul.
Paul, I don't know if you're having stomach issues these days.
Not that I wish that on anybody, but I've always been like, in a pinch, you guys could shove me in there. So, and again, not that I couldn't have worn what I was going to wear anyway as a commentator, but like, to me, it was always very important when I do that role to not look like a reporter who's all of a sudden standing next to her male cohorts looking like a reporter. So like kind of, it just has to be different, right?
So you said, I'm bringing the blazer.
So I'm bringing the blazer. Okay. And then the story I told you, I get on the plane, and I don't know if you travel a whole lot, but when you do travel a lot, planes can be this really lonely place.
That's interesting.
And I think maybe it's because...
Why is it lonely for you?
I think because I'm forced to sit still for a long duration, and especially if the Wi-Fi is not working, and then you're just like alone with your thoughts. Which made me realize the story that no one knows about me. And so but I didn't like all the negative talk that was going on in my head. And there's this great YouTube page that I follow called Rising Higher Meditations. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm just saying I really like the page.
Shout out to Rising Higher Meditation.
Shout out to Jess Shepard. And she's got this beautiful voice. And sometimes I use it to fall asleep because it's so soothing, but sometimes I use it to just kind of reframe my mind.
Right.
And I was like, I just need to reframe my mind and just be thankful for what I have and like start this season off great. So like pull my hoodie up, put my ear pods in, and I start this like 45-minute long, she's got all sorts of different stuff. This one's called like a guided meditation. And it takes you through this whole process of not just breathing, but like imagining the things you want and putting them in a box, and like then the box disintegrates. Like it takes you through this whole wild LSD trip type. I've never done drugs, but like it's very, but she does such a good job of like describing what you're supposed to be thinking about that you really feel like you're there. So like you're in space and you're allowing your wants and desires to disintegrate, and then like you go back down. Like it's a whole thing. And there's a whole section in there where it's just like you're supposed to focus on the things that you do have and the gratitude, and like not just like listing things in your head, but like feeling them in your heart. So like that feeling I get, I'm gonna get choked up, that feeling I get when my son says, I love you, mommy, or like I have a moment with him, or just the feeling I get coming to the amazing moments I've had in the UFC doing what I already do, all that stuff. Really, really not just thinking about it, but feeling it. And then by the time I was done, I felt a lot better. I was like, we're gonna have a great season. It's going to be awesome. Take a deep breath, and I look at my phone, and there's a text from Dana.
No.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It was right after that.
Yes. Yes,
See,
I know.
Now I believe in all of it.
Yeah. And like,
what was the text?
Are you in town? And I said, no, I'm still in the air right now. And he goes, okay, well, come see me when you land. And even then I'm like, okay, I don't want to get my hopes up. Right. He could be firing me. Who knows?
Nah, it's fucked up to make the trip to fire you.
Yeah, I don't think so. But I mean, you never know. Like,
right.
Sometimes I get a little loose-lipped on the weigh-in show. Yeah. So I don't know if you'd be like, hey, you've been a little, like we need to. So I had no idea. Right. I had no idea. But I was hopeful. Yeah.
And then you land.
Okay, so then I land, and I'm like, oh my god. And so I tell my driver, because he was initially going to take me to my hotel.
Right.
And this is even funnier because my schedule got kind of crisscrossed, and I was supposed to be going to a production meeting. So I thought I was supposed to be going to the hotel. I'm telling my driver to take me to the headquarters. And meanwhile, the woman who kind of like makes sure we're all doing the things we need to do, love you, Deidre, was like, hey, you've got a meeting in like 15 minutes. And I was like, no, I have to meet Dana in like 15 minutes. And she's like, no, you have a meeting in 15 minutes with Zach, your boss. So, and they're like, well, I can't tell Dana. Yeah. Sorry, Dana, I messed up my schedule. So it was a whole thing. But then I go to the headquarters, and he's not ready for me. And they're like, yeah, he's not picking up. I don't know. So I'm sitting in the lobby, and I'm supposed to be at this other meeting. My boss calls me, and I was like, hey, I'm really sorry. Dana wanted to speak with me. And he's like, I know. But he can't see you now, so just come to the meeting. I was like, oh, okay. So immediately, like, my stomach drops. I'm like, oh, no, this isn't going to happen. And I'm walking out the door to go to this other meeting in another building, and he calls me back. He's like, never mind, he's ready for you. Go up. I was like, okay. So go up. And
he's his office?
Yeah, he's sitting in his office, which is a really nice office. I know you've seen it. Yeah.
I actually never saw his office.
It's similar to the one you saw. Yeah. They're incredible. The upstairs at the
nicer
headquarters
than most apartments you will ever see in your lifetime.
Gorgeous. And he's just sitting there at like a conference table that he has in his desk just him in his office. And I was then I got really nervous because like he wasn't overly
Smiling?
Warm. No.
Oh,
it was like this really intense, he gets this really intense energy about him sometimes when he's like going to deliver bad news. And I was like, oh no, now he's telling me, hey, I just want to tell you in person, this is not ever going to happen. That's what I thought it was. I thought he was like doing me the kindness of, hey, I'm going to meet with you, but we've talked and like, sorry, like just put this dream away. And so I sat down, and he was just like, hey, so, we met, and I just want you to know, like, everybody thinks you've been killing it. And again, he's still not like smiling and like, hey, good to see, he's like, everybody thinks you've been killing it. You've done quick hits, you've done backstage reporting, you've done, all these sit down interviews that we did, like all this stuff. And he goes, and, do you want to call these fights tomorrow? And I was just like, oh my God. And I said, yes, fuck yes, I do. Yes. He goes, no, hold on. He goes, I realize we're giving you like no time to prepare whatsoever. So we can push it back off to next week if you want. I was like, no. I got this. I got this. So yeah, it was very last minute, wasn't happening until it did.
It probably felt almost like a main character movie moment for you.
It did.
No?
Yes. It felt very...
And also the sequence of events is insane.
It's super insane. And then the other little things that have happened along the way to make me have the confidence in that moment to be like, oh no, yes, I can. Because rewind to January when the LFA opportunity came about, that was very last minute as well. And that's a whole other story that was wild in and of itself, where like I really kind of had to do some stuff that are really outside of my personality to do.
You mind sharing?
I mean, I can. Do we have time?
We have plenty of time.
Okay. All right. So, when Pat Miletich left LFA, and I don't want to try to explain the whole situation, but it was less intense than I think people took on the internet.
For people that are not familiar.
Yeah, sorry.
Very, very briefly.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not even
No. Okay. So Pat Miletich is a legend of MMA,
right.
An absolute legend.
Yes.
And he has been the color analyst for LFA for a very long time,
okay.
Beloved by many, as he should be. Something happened with him and his expressing his political beliefs, I believe, online. And it was a thing. They didn't fire him though. It was like a mutual, hey, like let's just have you take a break for a minute, until we kind of both you decide and we decide like what's cool. Like we love you, but whatever. So they very quickly needed someone to fill that spot. The LFA is like, right, it's the feeder league to the UFC, and not only for fighters, but for broadcasters as well. And when I saw that on Instagram, I was like, oh man, who do I know? I don't know anybody at the LFA, but I would love to reach out and say, hey, like I've been doing this for Invicta. And I contacted someone I knew that knew someone, and Ed Suarez, the guy who runs the LFA, right, calls me the next day and he's like, hey, we hear, you're available. We'd love to have you do this. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But it's like tomorrow, you're going to miss the fighter meetings and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, it's fine. I'll make it work. So I drove to Wichita.
How far is that from where you're?
It's like 3.5 hours. Okay. And totally not safe to do this, but I was sort of watching fights as I was driving. More listening than watching. Listening. Trying to like study as much as I could. And about 45 minutes out of Wichita, I get a call from Ed. And he's like, so we're still really excited to have you, but there might be some adjustments to your role. Like, I don't want you to worry about it, but like, and it's going to be cool, but this is, we're just, we're like, see the pants here, whatever. And Alan Joban was also going to call the fights. So it was going to be the both of us. What I didn't know was that Alan had gotten that spot like weeks ago. And so he had been there throughout the fight week and done the fighter meetings and all the things. No one had told him or the producer, which is an important person to keep in the loop, that they were bringing me in. I didn't know that.
So he sees you like,
they didn't know that. Yes. So like finally this had been communicated and the producer's like, no, we can't just randomly add, which I totally understand. We can't just randomly add someone to the broadcast. Like I've never worked like a way I don't know. And I think part of it too was just like everything felt very shaky from Pat leaving. Like things were not going smoothly for them. It was a whole big thing. So I get there and I just get this text like, hey, come to the conference room and we'll talk and we'll figure this out. So I walk into this conference room and there's like 8 guys I've never met before. Alan, who I don't know that well at the time. I met him like one time. And Ed and whatever. And then they literally proceed to go around the room and all basically like say why they don't think I should be part of the broadcast. No. And it was so awkward. And so
so it was after you drove, you're like,
yeah. And they're like, but hey,
they're trying to be nice about it.
Yeah, they're trying to be nice about it. They're like, we just don't have an extra headset, and like maybe you can call some of the Facebook fights. And I'm genuinely not, I've never been in a position to be like, I'm too good for that. I've never had that attitude. I think that's a shitty attitude to have. But I also like have recently started to be like, okay, know your worth, Laura, know your worth, and they're like, we could have you do a report about all the Hawaiian fighters on the card. And I was like, oh, this is not what I signed up for. So I just sort of like listened and took it all in and sat through the meeting. And then when the meeting was over, I pulled the producer and Ed aside and I was like, hey, no hard feelings. I know you guys are like really going through some turmoil right now. I'm going to go home because the job that you're describing, I already have on ESPN.
Yeah.
So like, I'm good. Yeah. You're good. We're good. No problem. But I'm gonna skedaddle.
Like, no, wait.
And then they're like, no, but we can. So I won't make this story a gazillion times longer. But needless to say, it happened. By the end of it, literally everyone was like, we are so sorry. Like, we had no idea. And this is their words. I'm like, we had no idea you were that good. I'm so sorry.
Wow.
We really apologize. Like, literally all of them separately were like, we are so embarrassed that that's how that happened. And it's just out of my personality to like, normally I'm I'll just do, I'll do that, whatever, I'm here. But I don't know. It felt like I had to do it. So point being, I did that last minute. And then, so I knew I could do this last minute. It's just the way that things in life weave themselves together when you're paying attention and when you're being intentional about the things you want and why you want them.
Right.
It's not just what but why you want it. And what meaning is that going to bring to you ultimately? When you're aware of those things, I think you pick up on the threads as they're being woven, right? It's just hard to not see the end beautiful blanket or rug or whatever we're weaving here.
Well, I think also you did everything you could for 4 or 5 years to put yourself in the best positions as possible. And like, I didn't know you until last year whenever you did my show for the first time, but I watched the UFC religiously. Like, you can tell when you're working. It is just true professionalism. And I'm not saying that's a flattery. I'm not saying that's to stroke your ego. It's like you can tell like there's the professionals and then there's levels like, to everything. And then you can tell when someone is just like, there are no weaknesses to your game. I mean, we'll call it your game in that sense, and there's ways that you can improve, of course. Yeah. And you'll probably be the first one to say that.
I was going to say,
everyone can, right? But like, they're at least not apparent on television. And I think that like, being on MMA Twitter, which is a wild place. Yeah. You are universally loved by, I mean, you're going to get the hate because everybody does, like occasionally, but like I would be willing to wager if someone did a study of MMA Twitter, you are probably one of the most loved of the MMA figures. And I think that it's not because of X, Y, and Z reason.
I don't know why.
I think
to be honest with you, I don't know why.
I mean, call a spade a spade. It's like, you're very good at your job.
Thank you.
Period. And you're humble, so you won't say it like that. But I think that what was beautiful for me to see is not only you kind of talk about that in that moment when you did on my show, but it was also just to see it happen and to see you not just like walk into that moment on that night, that first Contender night. Yeah. Like for people to understand who weren't there, because especially Contender Series it's a weird thing to be present for because you hear nothing. Yeah. Especially at the Apex, it is silent. We don't hear the walk. I don't even think there's walkout music. There's no walkout music. No. You don't hear the commentators because you guys are in a different room. Yeah. It is pitch silent when these fighters walk in. I was like nervous for them, and I didn't even. I have no. And then you are that night. You're on 24-hour notice in doing commentary.
Yeah.
Then you see, which is hilarious. Like you come from like the end
running
in your heels.
Yeah.
I don't even know how you don't fall. And you have to call, and you're like giving the announcement of the fight, which thank God they relieved you of that opportunity.
I'm so excited.
And then you sprint out of the octagon, and the worst is when there was like a weird decision that night too, where there was like an eye poke and like
it was horrible.
Stopped that first in the third round. That was a whole other thing. And then you're like confused with that, and then you're going from there to the interview. And I honestly, I was just sitting there like very casual. I was like, wow, this looks awful.
It was so much.
But like it felt, and I was just looking at it from afar, but it was just kind of awesome to see you like, you're just like in your moment, and it was like your moment. And I'm just happy that they relieved you of that announcing the scorecards.
I am too. I never wanted to be doing that.
Nuts.
I just sort of randomly made me start doing it the second year or I think it was the first year.
I mean,
probably.
It's cool to hear you, but like you need.
I didn't
want to
do it. No, I don't want to be a ring announcer. I've never wanted to be a ring announcer. That's kind of why I never like. I don't want to say I never tried, but people are like, God, it sounds like she's just reading off a card. I am.
Yeah.
I was just reading off a card. I'm not going to try to be be fancy with it. That's not my thing. Yeah, it was a lot. I'm glad that's off the table, but that's what I mean about, the moments with the LFA and also with Invicta. First time I did color for Invicta. I'd done play-by-play before. That was on the morning of the fights, 6 hours notice. So having these opportunities, and that was a scary one too, because I know that the UFC producers will at times they don't watch a full Invicta show, but when fighters come from Invicta and end up in the UFC, they watch that footage and they hear those, announcers. So I can't sound dumb, and I can't sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. But it was another thing. I was like, no, Laura, the sport. You very kindly compliment my broadcasting skills. I'm still really insecure in a lot of ways about my broadcasting skills.
When you analyze yourself, where do you see the places you could get better? I'm curious.
A million of them, because I didn't go to school.
It the top three things that you like actively feel like you try to better.
Just, I think, so there's almost like a division of roles at least in UFC broadcasting. Okay. There's analyst, color commentator. That's really the main buckets over there. Right. Analyst, color, and those are the people that have fought, that have to have had actual fight experience, that are breaking down the fights, that are providing the color commentary, all that type of stuff. And then there are hosts and play-by-play and reporters, and that's kind of the big buckets over there. And you don't have to have had fight experience in those buckets. And that's the bucket I had been living in. So compared to those folks, I don't always ask the most wonderfully worded questions. Sometimes, like I remember when I was early in my UFC career, like I've always known MMA, right? That's how I even stumbled into this role. Right. But I would like break down an entire sequence and then not know how to turn it into a question. I'm like, yeah, when you landed that left hook and then you hit the switch and then da-da-da-da-da. And then my brain's like, but how is this a question, Laura? Ask him a question, you know? So I still, the subtle, like the way that John Anik can transition from topic to topic is just like art. I'm serious. If you've ever tried to do something like that, and I have done play-by-play a handful of times, it is so difficult, and he makes it look so easy. Yes. So it's just stuff like that, transitions, tosses, the real broadcast nuance stuff. I'm still, to some degree still learning, but fighting, I've known fighting forever.
And I think it's always interesting, even when you said earlier, there's a little asterisk again on the color commentator. Now, you and I have had a few conversations, but I think that it is clear to many UFC fans that one day we will definitely see you. I believe I'm gonna manifest
Thank
it.
You.
I'm gonna manifest it. That one day we will see you in that commentary position for a fight night, pay-per-view, whatever it is.
Yeah.
For you, is that, how do I say this the right way? We've talked about being kind of open, or like being open about it on social media and like making your voice heard. This I haven't asked you. Do you feel that has helped that cause more or less? And do you feel like, because at the same time it's you being authentic?
Yeah, it's a fine line, right? Like I don't want to be whiny, and I don't want to be, I don't want to ever act like I deserve something that I don't deserve.
Right.
Those people rub me the wrong way. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions too about why I got this role, how I got this role, like how long I've been trying to get this role. Yeah. Because people see various people on the broadcast, but again, it goes back to those buckets, like being an excellent reporter or host or all those things that frankly I'm good enough at, like I'm good at, but I'm not ever going to say I'm the best at that. It's just different. It's a completely different skill set than being able to talk about how someone should be getting out of an omoplata. Like if you've never been in an omoplata, you don't know how to get out of one, or you don't know how to visually see when one is coming. That's obviously a very specific example. All of that to say, I think now it's helpful. It's like heartwarming, if I'm being honest, to have a lot of people on Twitter saying it for me.
You get a lot.
Yeah, I do. And I don't, again, like I was nervous after the first LFA one because it was the first time I had branched out from Invicta. Right. And I was like, oh, are people going to like this? I don't know. And then really nervous after the first Contender series because that's an even more broad audience. But, if we're talking about the future, if I'm being honest, I'm nervous again for when that happens because that's an even more broad audience. I think that the LFA, Invicta, Contender series audience knows me really well.
Yeah.
From that Fight Pass / ESPN Plus world, the fight nights you start broadening up. But man,
the hardcores watch the Contender series,
so
they're watching the fight nights and the pay-per-views.
They do, and I'm telling you, like I'll just be honest, I've been blown away and overwhelmed by the feedback because I go on and I type my name in because I just want to see what people are saying. Like I'm fascinated to know.
You're taking that risk. Now, granted, people say a lot of great things, but searching your name on Twitter.
Oh, it's so scary. It's so scary. But I've been so pleasantly surprised by the number of people. In fact, just last night, like I had a lady send me a message on Instagram randomly. She's like, I trained jiu-jitsu and kickboxing with a group of women, and we are all so inspired by, what you're doing. And I never really set out to be an inspiration.
Interesting. Why
it became that along the way. But if I'm being perfectly honest, when I first wanted to do this, it was more about me. And I sound like an asshole saying that.
What about? But was it because you wanted to prove it to yourself?
Yeah.
That you could do it?
Yeah, like my whole life has been like that. I've always been like that. I grew up with an older brother, and I was always like the little girl tagging along with these 6 boys that were 4 years older than her, which when you're little is like a massive age difference, of course. And so I was always trying to keep up and like prove that I could, I could keep up on my bicycle, or I could, whatever the case may be. Like I can hang. All the way through high school, same thing. Even when he went away to college, like I would go drive up to Michigan and visit him and like just be one of the guys. My whole life has been like that. Like I remember I just never wanted to be judged by the fact that I was a girl or what I looked like or any of those things. I just wanted to prove that I could be one of the guys. I think at one point I even told my mom I wanted to be a guy. So it's just funny how that's kind of literally carried into my adult life.
What do you do it for now?
Which part?
Where's the drive to, like, because someone, right, and you're a highly motivated person. I will say that with confidence. So your goals are always like, once you get one thing, it's like, what's next? What's next?
That's what I mean about the moment being gone so soon. I'm like, okay, what's next?
And
yeah.
But it's like somebody could objectively look at your career and be like, holy fuck, like that, I would dream to have that career.
Yeah.
For you, you've got even bigger dreams.
I do.
But for like at this point in time, where do you get that motivation for those bigger dreams?
I'm always gonna be someone who has just that inward motivation to do more. That is just programmed in my DNA, I guess.
You've always been like that?
I've always been like that. I was always an A-type. Like I made straight A's in high school. I was summa cum laude in college. Like, you know,
But why? Was it in those moments, was it, you know, because of your family? Was it
because I knew I could.
Because you knew you could.
Yeah. Like I knew I could be like, I was top 5, not top 5%, but top 5 people graduating in college. Like I knew I was capable of it. So why not? Like, when I played piano, like I was like, oh, I should just get good enough to get a full ride scholarship. Mm-hmm. Did it, you know, and it's not, that sounds so cocky, I guess, but I don't know. Like I'm pretty good at, this is such a lame, this will be the tidbit that you clip. Okay. Here we go. I'm pretty good at getting good at stuff. Hey.
Shakespeare wrote that.
Yeah, he sure did. He sure did. Laura Sanko says she's pretty good at getting good at stuff. No, I want to be the best at whatever I do. That's what it comes down to. And but my point earlier, and I'm glad you kind of helped me bring it back to that. It started out as there's just that like A-type drive of like, no, I know I can do it, and then I can do more, and I can do better. But then it really didn't take long for me to start to get, and it really has, it's been a lot of the social media messages and just people around me like, wow, this is really cool. You're inspiring me. And the first time I heard that word, I almost wanted to laugh. Like, I just don't see myself as any sort of inspiration, but especially over this last year, like the messages I'll get from dads who watch the UFC and, you know, like, hey, you were calling the fights, and my daughter walked in the room and she's like, who's that? And it started a conversation for us about, hey, you know, you can do what you want to do too. Or, you know, you don't have to just take these paths because they are, you know, easier for women or less easy for women. And that's a whole other topic too, because like, I never wanted to get the job because I was a woman. Mm-hmm. And I still don't feel like I still feel that way. Like, but what I kind of sort of like started to realize is that part of the job necessitated being a woman, because that's part of what was missing and has been missing in the UFC voice is telling the story of women's MMA from the perspective of someone who has lived it for a very long time. Now, while I haven't fought in the UFC, I've been training since 2006 and like have been, you know, across the country in different gyms, and like just the journey of what it's like to be a woman in MMA, I can definitely speak to. So given that that's part of the job description, I guess it's okay.
Well, can I tell you why I think also you say that there's that asterisk and that, you know, and to hope that you'll be doing a pay-per-view one day. It's exactly what you said. It's because you know you can.
Yeah, I do know I can.
You know, I mean, you know you can, and that's and anybody that knows you for 2 seconds knows that you are as humble as they come. But that's just like you're. I was telling Josh this actually earlier before you walked in. I was like, where I admire you, regardless of the accolades, is as a person. I think if I were to show someone what it looks like to be humble and confident, I would look at you, because I think that like not a single moment, at least that I've spoken to you, where like you know your skills and you know what you're good at, but it never comes across as arrogant. And I think that, you know, this is a great situation. It's like, you know you could do that.
Yeah.
And you will. And we will look back at this clip the same way we looked back at the other clip in February. We'll look back at this clip when that day happens. But you know, it's it must be hard for you to, like, I know you don't have a lot of time to take it in. So I hope like moments like this, you're able to kind of appreciate the work in the past, and the path that you've taken. Moments
like this do help. And it is crazy because in reality, the fact is like, and actually I had this moment with Bisping the other night, because after the last show, we grabbed a bite to eat, and oddly enough, Davey Grant was there also. But anyway,
shout out Davey Grant.
We were there's like a sushi spot right across the street from the hotel, and we were talking, and you know, it's hard to wrap my mind around, because so like at one time, I should say at the same time, like I feel like he and I are just like buddies. Mm-hmm. We're guy friends, whatever, you know. But then there's like part of my mind that remembers watching him on The Ultimate Fighter at home or in my dorm, or no, I guess I had graduated at that point, but like, and just being a fan at home, like all of the people who watch like I'm one of them. I think that's why, I don't know. I think that's what I want to carry. If I do ever make it to, when I make it to calling a pay-per-view, that's the voice I want to have. It's like, it's the same thing that I think that Joe Rogan does such an amazing job of providing on the UFC broadcasts. Obviously, I'm not comparing myself to Joe, but like he speaks with the voice of a fan.
Right.
And that's what I am ultimately. I started out as a fan of the sport, then I started training, then I started fighting, then I started talking, and then I started calling fight. You know, like that's just this journey. But the reality is, like, I was just a person at home on my couch, like millions of other people. I just worked my ass off to get here and had to push in a lot of doors to do it. So
for you, do you measure that success based on the opportunities that present yourself? Like, how do you personally measure where you're at or your success?
That's a good question. And it's something that I struggle with because what you were saying earlier, I do have this tendency to like, okay, what's next? What's next? More, better. I think ultimately, and I may have said this before, but I think ultimately I really want to be a well-known, but more importantly, well-respected voice in the sport. Whatever shape that takes, and I hope that it takes shape in the form of.
Couldn't someone argue you're already that?
Someone else said that to me. I don't.
I would make, if someone said present the argument, I can make it.
I'm getting there. I feel like I'm getting there. I would like to continue to grow in that, and you know, I'm very. Television is such a weird thing. It's something I never thought I would be doing, and then you mix it with social media and it's just an extra weird thing. This is going to sound weird. I want to be the smart girl. Like, I don't want to be the pretty girl.
Right.
I don't mind being both occasionally. But I'm well aware, like, one of those things goes away over time. That happens to all of us. It's happening to me as we speak. But no, like you being a woman in television is weird. And again, it's not something I grew up anticipating. So it's been weird to adjust to it. But I want to have, I guess what I'm saying is like, I want to have the type of career and the type of respect that will carry me into my 60s and still be on television. You know, like I want to be Barbara Walters, still getting out there and having people go, oh, Barbara's on, like we got to listen up to what she has to say, and not just like, oh, the hot girl's on television. I don't want that. I want to be the smart girl.
How will you, like, is there something that you're looking for where you will then be like, oh, I am a well-respected voice, or people know me now as the smart girl? Because you might always be searching for this.
I might always be searching for this.
I don't know if there's a moment that you could anticipate where you would get that feeling.
You know, I do, you know, back to the manifestation thing, there are certain things that just naturally, I don't create them in my mind. They just insert themselves in my mind. They're just there as soon as I start thinking about something. And when I picture myself like calling a pay-per-view and looking to my left and seeing John Anik, or, you know, looking to my left and seeing, you know, DC or Rogan or whoever it is, Paul, Bisping, like the people, Dom, the people I just haven't worked with Dom yet. That's what I see, and I think I will get it then, but I don't know. But like what I was trying to say earlier, I'm sorry, I'm talking in circles here. After the show, when I was talking with Bisping, I was telling him that thing about how, you know, I'm super comfortable with you. It's not like I'm like, oh my God, I'm in the presence of greatness. But every once in a while, my brain goes, oh my God, I'm in like, this is Michael Bisping, right?
Former
like
middleweight champion of the world.
Not only that, like he's transcended more than just being a champion, you know. And I was a little bit nervous about having this role next to him, if I'm being honest. He is amazing, and he and I are tight. But like, there's certain guys where I'm just like, I don't know if he's gonna respect my opinion. And I'd never wanted to be, I've always been a big believer that, especially women in situations like this, you cannot march into a room and stomp your foot and say, respect me because I'm here. You know, like you walk in the room like anybody else does. You start making conversation. That respect comes over time because you earn it. So I never wanted to be like, hey, Michael, when we're on the broadcast, I'm going to need you to agree with me when I say something. You know, I didn't want it to happen like that. And after that show, we were kind of talking with Davey about like this whole thing happening because they had actually interviewed him about like a little documentary piece they're doing on me having this new role. I didn't know they were going to interview him. And he jokingly, he was like, oh my God, I just had to spend the last 15 minutes saying how amazing you are, you know, whatever. And I was like, oh really? Do tell, Michael, do tell. And he said, no, but seriously, he said, it's clear that you really know your shit. And he said, I genuinely am happy that you're doing it. I think you deserve it. Mm-hmm. You deserve to be here. And I'm glad it was you, meaning like the first, whatever. He's like, I'm glad it was you. So like to have, holy shit, Michael Bisping say, you know what you're talking about. You deserve to be here. Moments like that do feed that, like, I don't know if it's an insecurity I have, I guess, a need for approval that maybe all of us have to some degree. Maybe I just have it more. I
think everybody does.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, well, even that, it's like, I think that's in a way so humanizing because people look at you and now people look at you as an inspiration, even though you never thought that would be the case.
Yeah.
But even you, who people look at every week on ESPN Plus or whatever it is, like even feeling that need of some, whether it's validation or approval from those people, I think any human being with a pulse can relate to that, you know? And I think it's equally important for people to hear you say that and verbalize it, because someone hopefully listening to this right now in a different context probably feels the exact same way about their career.
Yeah.
You know? It
is. It's a natural thing to want to be liked, to want to be respected. And I definitely have that's a big part of my personality. I'm very much like a people pleaser. I like people in general, and I like to be liked in return. So that can be an asset. It can also be really difficult. And, you know, television's kind of a tough game sometimes in that way. But, I'm happy and I'm grateful and I'm really, really, I feel blessed. And anytime I start to get any amount of like frustration or, I want things to happen fast. I always have. I just go back to that like place of gratitude and reminding myself, and just again moments like this where I'm like, wait a second, you know, not that long ago I was just watching this stuff on TV and had never done any of these things before.
I'm like, when were you working in VC? Was it 10 years ago?
Yeah. So I was a completely different career. I think you can probably say I changed careers
7 years ago?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
That's insane. Think about that.
Yeah.
Your son is 7. So it's like only his, and he's a young boy.
Yeah.
So like even in that amount of time, it's like you went from not having a kid in venture capital to having a son and a family and working all these things that I'm sure at one point you never thought would happen.
Agree. Yes. Yeah. And I just have to, I don't know. I probably need to figure out some way to memorialize it or write it down or something so that something physical I can look at that will be a trigger for me to just, okay, slow your roll, you know, just be grateful be simultaneously grateful and driven. You know, you can be both. And that's a struggle for me at times, but finding that ability to be grateful for what you have while also being hungry for the next thing is what I need.
And does that time spent with your family afterwards, I don't know if it changed anything, or I think you had posted something where your son had like made a drawing for you after you got that. Those moments must also, balance, because people don't see how you balance work and being a mom. And you're not like a mom of a 20-year-old who's in college who can figure their shit out on their own. Like he's 7 years old, so he still needs his mom. Yeah.
I mean, the biggest help in that is A, of all things, my husband. And then B, we have a fantastic nanny who helps as well. But yes, on an emotional level, this week is a perfect example. I was super stressed out because Burke had to be home from school this week.
Right.
And my nanny also couldn't work this week.
Oh.
And my husband, it's not like he has a normal job. He runs a company that is doing like major business deals right now. And things are really tough in that industry, in the automobile industry at the moment. Like a lot of crazy things happening because of China. Yeah. So he's literally at home on the phone all day long putting out fires. And I'm like, hey, could you just also homeschool our child for a full week with no help whatsoever while you run your company? While I'm just gonna be
go
in
watch
New
some
York.
fights.
I'm just gonna go watch some fights in New York. So the support, I mean, it's just a fact. Like I could not be doing this without him and without our nanny Rose. But to have my son say, like, I was really stressed out about it, and I was this close to calling the UFC and being like, guys, I can't come this week. Because this is not good. My son literally like pulled me aside. He goes, come here. Because I was starting to like freak out and I was tearing up. And he pulled me upstairs and he sat me down on the bed. He was like such a little adult. He goes, what's going on? Tell me what you're stressed out about.
That's adorable.
I know. Because it's the same way that we talk to him when
Right.
he's freaking out about stuff. And I just told him. And I said, well, buddy, I don't want you to worry about it. I'm just, it'll be fine. And he's like, I can tell you. I was trying to be the adult, right? And he's like, no, I'm going to be the adult. I got this. And he's like, Mom, you need to go. Dad and I will be fine. I will be good. I'll get all my work done. You need to go. You can't start something and not finish it. I was like, you're right. So that helps.
But at least you got to spend a little Halloween with him.
Yeah.
And speaking of, we have a little video.
Oh, great.
To show your Halloween costume for the individuals out there. I'll let you put on the headset for this so we can listen to it. Because so people that don't follow you, that'll want to follow you after this.
Do I get to sing?
You can probably sing if you want to.
Okay.
But let's look at this for a quick second.
Wow. Who's that?
That's you.
Island boy.
Island boy.
Island
I'm just island boy.
Island boy. I'm a
You hearing yours?
island boy.
So now we have a little surprise for you,
I'm a
for you and
island
Burke.
boy.
Oh God.
Let's roll
Hey,
that.
Laura and Burke.
Stop.
It's your favorite island boys. We just want to send you love and tell you that you have
Oh
an
my
amazing Halloween
God!
costume just like us. Burke, your mom is a star and a real island boy like us. We are the island boys just trying to make it. We got something for you. I'm an island boy. I'm gonna keep it like an island boy. I'm gonna sing it like it's Awaguan. Tell them boys they gotta keep that gun. I'm gonna do
Let
it
the
for
sun
Let the sun.
sun
I'm really
gazing.
sun gazing in the pool where I'm really staying.
They changed it.
I'll pull it like I'm Super Saiyan. All right, man.
Oh,
we love you guys. All right, Laura.
my
and Burke.
God. How did you do that?
Shout out to Cameo for that. Come on. A little personalized thing for Laura and Burke from the Island Boys themselves. I knew I could get you with that.
Oh my God.
Cause I saw your costume. I'm like, hold on. We got Laura on Monday or Tuesday or Thursday.
I don't know why I'm so happy about that.
And I can send it to you if you want to send it to
Yes,
yeah,
you have to
I'll
send it to me. Holy shit, that is hilarious. Oh my God. Bless their hearts. They're probably raking it in.
Oh my!
Accidentally.
You don't even imagine.
And you know what?
You know what? Shout out to. Go make your dollars.
Go make your dollars.
Capitalize on the moment because it won't last forever.
Exactly.
And go make as much money as possible. But I was so happy that I could. And my favorite is if you listen to it back, you'll see the way they say like Burke at the end. Wait, will you show it one more time?
I gotta listen
Just
to this.
listen.
Oh
They'll-
my God.
They like say like Laura and Burke, and they're like because they
Burke.
Because hold on.
Holy shit.
Go back to yeah. There you go.
Laura and Burke. It's your favorite island boys. We just want to send you love and tell you
end
that you
Burke
had
is
an
good, too.
amazing Halloween costume just like us. Burke, your mom is a star and a real island boy like us. We are the island boys just trying to make it. We got something for you. I'm an island boy. I'm gonna keep it like an island boy. I'm gonna sing it like it's Awaguan. Tell them boys they gotta keep that gun.
Staring
I'ma
at
do
the
it.
sun.
Staring at the sun. I've been really at the sun gazing in the pool where I'm really staying. I'll pull it like I'm Super Saiyan. All right, man. We love you guys. All right, Laura.
And Burke. And Burke. Oh my gosh. Woo. That might be one of the greatest moments of my life right there. That is so funny.
I was like, hold on, wait a minute. I have to do this.
Did they actually see my costume?
So yes, so this is the thing too, is you can send them a now I didn't know how Cameo does it. I thought like I had my producer before do this to put it together. But I thought you can send them a video of what they're looking at. So that's why they kind of smile. I think they had seen like they actually saw it because they're like upload a video so they see. And so so the Island Boys are like, oh wow, that's actually a pretty good costume.
Oh my God. That's so good. Whew. So fantastic.
You have to send it to
thank you.
Of course.
That might be one of the best presents.
You know, I don't it's funny because I don't usually put things on the monitor like that. But I was like, hold on, Josh, I have this thing that you have to put up. And I had my producer do it this morning to make that little collage or whatever.
The effort. Thank you guys so much. That is amazing. I can't wait to share that.
But honestly, like, because you went in on that. I mean, you have the Under Armour, like.
Oh, yeah.
You're sagging the pants. You got the grill.
That's what I was trying to, like, when I pull the camera, I was trying to, someone was like, stop trying to show your tits. I was trying to show the fact that I had the exact same pants on.
And you were, like, sagging them.
Yes.
And the way
I had the same
them.
bull shorts. I bought the underwear.
You had the grill.
I had the grill. Now I wish I'd actually, like, I had planned on doing the whole, but, like, that's a lot of drawing. And it was cold, so I knew I'd be, like, wearing the hoodie once we started walking anyway, so I kind of just left it as the neck. And Felix, we
got you there.
Where is this going?
I don't know.
My
the
gosh,
Island Boys.
That was amazing. Wow.
I'm happy that we got that done for you.
I'm happy you got it.
Because I'm gonna clip that, and that'll be I can confidently say that you've never had that on another podcast.
I've never had that on another podcast.
I'll go on a limb and say I don't know if you ever will. Because unless you
sure
do the
will
Island
not.
Boys next year.
Well, no, we'll figure something out.
Yeah, there'll be another.
Dude, that was absolutely maybe that can be the thing that I look at and find gratitude. This is the summation of my journey.
When I saw you post that, first of all, I thought it was hilarious because I'm like, Laura Sanko as an Island Boy. Like, especially when you look at these videos, these Island Boys, and all props to them, they're doing their thing. They are doing their thing. I think nobody should hate on them. But they're obviously special individuals.
Yeah.
They don't look like a lot of us. And when I saw you dress up, like, here's, Christian conservative Laura Sanko from the Midwest with her grill. I'm like, hold on, something. We got to do something.
Oh
here.
yeah, it was funny.
I think you got Mom of the Year for that.
I mean,
I think you have to.
I'm gonna.
A lot of moms that dressed up as Island Boys for Halloween.
I don't know any.
Exactly.
I know one.
Exactly.
She's got 2 thumbs. She's right here. That was amazing. Thank you.
I'm happy that we did that.
I'm
happy
so
we got a
happy
nice
you did
live
that.
reaction to that too.
Oh my God.
That was a little smooth transition too. You saw it, Josh?
What's funny is, like, I've seen that video, their original video. I've seen it so many times.
Catchy.
Like, I can sing.
It's so catchy.
It isn't it?
No, it's not even like, no disrespect. It's not that great of a song.
It's not at all.
But
no
it's so
disrespect.
catchy.
But it's so catchy, and that's what everyone says to me. Like, when I posted that, everybody's like, "Fuck you! That's gonna be stuck in my head all day now."
And Ariel's a big proponent of it.
I know.
Shout out to Ariel. Like, I love that he
and Verna Jandaroba walking out to it.
He put Verna's what's it called? Like a picture of Verna in his
on the wall?
studio. Because,
yes.
I mean, but that was legendary, especially Verna's vibe and when she's dancing like that. Now, unfortunately, she lost the fight, but that was just awesome. It was
the last person you would expect
is Verna Jandaroba.
to A, even know what the Island Boys are, and then B, have the cojones to be like, "Hey, UFC, this is what I want to walk out to."
Did you see that Petrosky? He tried to get that song, but they said, "Hold on, wait a minute.
No,
it's already booked up for Verna already. She
Wow.
got it first.
Good girl.
Because I don't think you can have the same walkout
I don't
song.
think I knew that, but that makes sense. You wouldn't want to hear the same song twice. First come, first serve. That's incredible. Wow.
Goddamn.
Just really hits me right here in the
Well,
heart.
I'll send it to you so you can
Thank
send
you.
it after. I mean, we'll get this episode out in a week or two, but
Thank you. Whew. That was fantastic. This whole conversation's been fantastic. The problem with this is, like, I could keep talking to you for hours and hours and hours.
We can. So I want to take you on a complete kind of U-turn that we had talked about when we were kind of outside when you first got here.
Yeah.
Because what I'm always curious about with people that either are A, successful, B, that I respect and admire, is also kind of like overcoming different mental hurdles. Because I think, even in our conversation right now about manifesting and getting your mind right, it's a lot, obviously, on the mental. For you, growing up the way you did, Christian conservative, and then you got married very young. Obviously, want to touch on that really quick. And then a second marriage that is obviously awesome right now. There had to have been, over the course of your life, different mental hurdles that you had to overcome. And I'm curious, if you don't mind, candidly, because I do think that kind of plays into like the inspiration, like you being an inspiration for people. I'm sure that there are a lot of people that were in similar situations that you were. And I think it's awesome that you have spoken about it openly on my show, but other shows about different moments where MMA not only saved you because of different places that you were at in life, but just being very candid about some of the psychological difficulties that you had at times. And I don't know if there's maybe one or two of those mental hurdles that you're willing to pinpoint that really kind of progressed you just in life, professional apart.
Yeah. So I think, along with what we talked about earlier with being sort of that people pleasery personality, perfectionism, A-type, all of that stuff I have in abundance. I led a very, and to this day, honestly, I was actually just having a conversation with someone the other day about this. I've had a very easy life, and it's a weird thing. It's almost like survivor's guilt. Like, being on the Contender series is a perfect example because I come across these stories, and I think maybe that's why they affect me so much. Like the things that other people have been through and things that they have overcome to get where they are on paper are so much more than anything I've ever had to go through in my life. Like, I was raised in a great family. My parents were not divorced. We had an upper middle class upbringing. Like, I never wanted for anything. I had a great school. I have a great relationship with my brother. Like, no one close to me has ever passed away. Yeah, I mean, recently I've lost like friends, but I guess what I'm saying is like I didn't lose a parent. I have not lost a child. Like, all of these things that I can't even wrap my mind around having to deal with and overcome. And yet I would find myself dealing with depression. And so it was almost like I would be sitting there yelling at myself and chastising myself. Like, how could you possibly feel shitty? You have what looks to be for many a perfect life. Like,
is this recent or more?
Oh, it's
previous?
my whole life. Okay. My whole life. Like, what could you possibly have to complain about? Like, you ungrateful bitch. Right. And it's taken, I haven't had a major mental health struggle in a while, but I think when you are someone who leans that direction, it's kind of always there a little bit. But yeah, what you alluded to before. So when I got married really, really young, because that felt like, the way that I was raised, that felt like the goal. Like, I got a fantastic ACT score and I got a 34 on my ACT and I could have gone anywhere.
I heard you got hold on, before we get into like the deep stuff, I heard you got from what I think it was either my show or a different show, you got like a 34 and you were like 12 or something?
Wasn't 12. I was in middle school.
Okay, it was like, I think it was ninth grade.
Yeah, ninth grade.
I didn't even get a 34 when I was in 12th grade. Let's talk about it. So,
I could have gone anywhere. I know that now, but the way I was raised, it's not like my parents were super excited for me and proud and like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. But it wasn't like, hey, you should probably go to MIT or, hey, you could probably do anything you want to do. And I was really science minded. I think it's because it's not like being a career woman was demonized. It just wasn't what you do. Right. You go to college only because that's what we people do, and then you find the right guy and then you get married and you raise a good Christian family. That's the goal. And having a career can distract from that, I was never said like, you shouldn't work. My parents would never have said that to me. And my dad actually always dragged me like into his professional life. So I don't mean to make it sound like they were, totally back. It's not that way at all. It just was never like, it was never the goal. It was never something that was put up on a pedestal. So I did get married really young because I thought that was the goal. And
for people out there, you were about 23, 24.
Yeah, I honestly can't remember. I was like 23, but I was only married for 6 months because it was such a total failure, disaster, whole mess.
Do you mind even just touching on like what the main? I mean, without having to go crazy into it if you don't want to.
I met him. I worked through college. Not only did I carry 26 credit hours, but I was also working a full-time job in public relations at the time. Wow. So, I mean, looking back, it was just ridiculous. I should have partied. I didn't. And he worked at the place where I was working, and we met, and he was funny and charming, and
he was older?
Yes, older. Ironically, the same age difference as my husband.
Okay.
And I've always dated older guys. Like, that's just my whole life. I've always dated older guys, even when I was younger. And it just seemed like he was just different than any other guy I dated before. And he seemed much more together, as you would be when you're 30-something.
Wait, what's the difference?
13 years. 13 years,
wow.
Yeah.
So you were 23, 24.
Yeah, and he was 36.
That's a difference.
Yeah, it is. I see that now. But even then, I mean, listen, you're one to talk. I mean, I was kind of like you. Like, no one ever knew how old I was because I just carried myself
Thank you.
for, in a much more mature way, I guess. The age difference really wasn't the problem.
Okay.
It was so because we worked together and I moved in with him pretty quickly, and then our lives were just so parallel. And he knew all my friends and I knew all his friends, and like we worked together and then we lived together. So like there was never he knew where I was at all times. And then very quickly I took another job in venture capital. That's when I switched from public relations to the venture capital stuff. And, I had a world outside of him. And then I started to see the red flags I should have seen when we were dating, but because we were dating in such a bubble, they weren't there. I won't go into details, but it was like a whole mess. He put tracking shit on my computer and like threats, and it was
after getting married.
Yes, it was like a whole. He had a problem. He had a real problem that I was not aware of, and then it got way worse when I was like
red flag like during.
Not that I can remember, but I was also 23 and an idiot. So like I wouldn't, 38-year-old me would have seen some, but I just didn't. And it progressed to a really not good place, and some really weird shit went on. And I was like, okay, I'm out. I'm going to move back in with my parents. And then it really escalated when I was like, I'm leaving you. And it was really tough because at first my parents were like, I'm sorry, what?
Right.
Because the way I was raised, the goal in life is to have a good marriage and a good family and to stay together. And that's like what you do. And so here I am, I've done everything right my whole life, and I go and fuck up the one thing you're not supposed to fuck up right out the gate, and they thought I was crazy. But luckily, because I moved home, they started getting brought into the chaos and some of the things that he was doing. And they were like, oh, wow, no, yeah, you're good. Yeah, we'll just move on from this one. Right. We'll just, so it's funny because like, I don't really think about him that much because we were married for such a short period of time. And I don't really think of myself as being on my second marriage because we didn't have kids. Like it was so quick. And just, what do they call that? Like, it's just a gimme. Like, we'll just pretend that one didn't happen. Yeah. I probably should have just gotten it annulled. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know legally how that works, but whatever. I don't know.
Wow. And how do you think that shaped you, I guess, moving forward, mentally, and also being able to, because I think what I'm curious about is there's probably a lot of people out there that not only had a situation where they got romantically involved, whether it's marriage or very seriously, and it didn't work out, at a young age and whatever. But I think also there's probably a lot of young people out there that come from similar backgrounds like yours, where it is that still remains. And I'm not even saying like just in like Christian conservative, Muslim, and through all religions, it would be shamed upon or frowned upon to get divorced, especially so young, especially all that. For you, I think, how did you kind of overcome that shame? And if there's, some young person out there that had that or is still young and is kind of going through that at this point in time, what would you say to them?
Man, I would just say that at 38, looking back, I can now say life is messy. You know, I think especially when you grow up in these, and in many ways, the major religions that I'm familiar with have a lot of things in common, whether it's Islam, Judaism, Christianity. And it's this like family first. And that's a beautiful thing. And that is, I think there's so much good that can come out of that. But it's then the idea that like, if you accidentally break out of that mold, okay, is there guilt involved? Is there shame involved? Is there, will you be shunned by whether it's your family or your church or whomever? Will you be, you know, looked at sideways like, oh God, she went and got married and then she'd like, you know, really fucked that one up. You know, you have to, this sounds so trite, but you have to be true to yourself. And it's something I like, because I still consider myself like, I'm a Christian. My faith just looks different than I think my parents envisioned it would. Like I just clearly dropped an F-bomb. You know, that's it. My faith looks different than I think what my parents thought it was going to, but it's still very much there. And I guess as an adult, I've realized that my relationship with God and whatever name you use for God, my relationship with God it's just that it's my relationship. And it's just like the relationship that you have with a person. Like you can't expect my relationship with you to look like his relationship with you. Right. It just doesn't work that way. It's two individuals. And so to me, that's how I find spirituality. So if you honor that spirituality, you have to honor what feels right to you, because to me, that is God talking to you, right? I don't know. There are probably a lot of Christians out there if they're watching this going, well, that's not what the Bible says. I would trust me. I was raised that way. Like I went to Christian schools my entire life. I read the Bible more than once. You know, I could quote scripture all day long, but at the end of the day, I do think that like the verse that's always stuck out to me is the shortest verse in the Bible. God is love. And not to get geeky, but like, if you think of it, I can't remember the math property, but transitive property. Thank you.
There's one thing that I know.
God is love. And then to me, that means that love is God. And so above all things, whether it's love for yourself, whether it's love for other people, whether it is love for what you do, like that is of the utmost importance. And that's where you're going to find meaning. And that's where you're going to fill that hole that I think all of us have to some degree. Like, why are we here? Where is this going? What are we doing? Right. You know, purpose. To me, that's where I find purpose, is that God is love, and therefore love is God.
Did you ever have any resentment towards maybe your parents or your family that there was that kind of expectation, or correct me if it's not accurate, but narrow-mindedness in that sense of like things have to be this way? And because naturally one of the reasons why you probably felt that guilt or that shame at that point in time was because there was those expectations on you.
Yeah, and it was probably less my parents and more just the community as a whole. Yeah, so like, again, probably more my school, to be honest. I went to a really conservative Christian school. You know, the dress code was hilariously ridiculous. This T-shirt reminded me, because like I grew up loving Nirvana, but of course you couldn't, you know, like a lot of kids I went to school with weren't even allowed to listen to the radio, you know. So for my standards, my parents were pretty like, I could listen to Nirvana.
Well, they seem
you know?
Also like they're willing to, no, I don't know your parents, but they seem like they're also willing to listen and change their minds, which is important, which is a sign of intelligence.
Maybe not change their minds, but the listening part. You know, they're not overly narrow-minded by any stretch of the imagination.
First and foremost, they love you.
Yes.
That's the most important.
And that really is the biggest thing. Do they wish I went to church? Yes, they really, really do. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to talk to me. You know what I mean? Like, they love me at the end of the day. And I guess to circle back, that would be my point to anybody who is concerned with breaking outside of some sort of cultural or religious bubble, is just you have to know that the people who don't accept you after making that decision were not meant to be in your life anyway. Right. And there will be people on the other side of it, both from your community and not, who will grow with you through those changes. And, you know, I think overall, like, religion, maybe I won't say religion, but like the way I was raised, everything felt very black and white. Like there are right decisions and there are wrong decisions in almost anything. And I would say that at this point in my life, I think that almost every decision is gray. Mm-hmm. Like, had I gone to MIT or Harvard and gone into some sort of scientific field, can I say that that was the wrong decision, that I'm here? You know, like, I just don't know that it's just different. It's just different. And it's easier to look at things as black and white and right or wrong. But I think that there are pros and cons to about almost any decision that you make in life. Do I stay in this relationship? Do I leave this relationship? Do I take this job? Do I not take this job? Do I move to this new city or not? It's not like there's one decision where you make that decision and the rest of your life is like happily ever after. You know what I mean? And then the other fork, if you went the other way, you know, it's all bad or whatever. Life just doesn't work like that.
Can I ask you something very candidly?
Sure.
Romantically, how did you learn to trust again?
It took a long time, but really, I think I'd be taking too much credit if I made it sound like that was the issue. I think probably I was more like clingy and I needed to move on to the next thing. And my husband was like basically a confirmed bachelor, like did not want to get married. So we dated for 7 years. Oh. So if I'd had it my way, I probably would have jumped into something right away again and probably would have just continued to, you know, repeat some sort of negative cycle. But because we were forced to date for so long, and during that dating time, I lived here by myself and struggled with a long distance relationship and the ups and downs of that, you know, I think, so I really have to kind of give credit to him for like being like, no, for a while.
And he was like against it, or
no, he just didn't really feel like it was necessary. He's
So what magic trick did you pull?
He's gonna kill me for telling this story, but like, I just got so sick of waiting. You know, like everybody's like, everybody has a great proposal story. We'd been living together for like 5 years at this point, and I think one day I was in the kitchen and I was just like, can I just start planning a wedding? He's like, yeah, I guess. So that was
nice.
that was how we got engaged. And then like I was going on my bachelorette trip. A buddy of his has like this incredible like 36-foot yacht down at the Lake of the Ozarks, and we were gonna go hang out on this guy's yacht. And my ring, like, because I had worked in New York in the diamond business, I hooked him up with one of my diamond guys. So like a really, really good rock at a good price. And it had just come in the mail. And so like I'm pulling out of the driveway, and that's how he gave me the ring. He's just like, hey, your ring's here.
Here's the package.
Yeah. It's actually a video of it. He just like tears open, here it is, you know, like that, but that's just him. That's just him. He's not the romantic
but I feel like that's also awesome, you know.
Yeah.
It's just like,
yeah,
you guys knew.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you most proud of, mom-wise?
Oh, I think I'm most proud of kind of what I talked about earlier, that my son is so, he's so in tune with how people feel. And that can be hard because then you take on those feelings, and that's kind of how I am. But at 7 years old, to be able to like really articulate how he feels and then have a heart for other people. Now he can be ornery, trust me. It's not like he's some perfect little angel by any stretch of the imagination, but when it really comes down to it, when he sees someone hurting, like he really wants to help them. And that means more to me than, you know, getting straight A's or, you know, any of that type of stuff. I actually have to really keep myself in check with that type of stuff because I'm that way. It's hard for me not to have those expectations of him. And he's good at school. He's whip smart, but he also kind of doesn't care. Yeah. And the not caring part, I'm like, but how can you not care?
It'll get you over time.
I'm like, how can that? Yeah. What do you mean you don't? It doesn't bother you that you, I mean, I don't say this out loud, but in my head, I'm like, you got a B. You could do better than that, you know? That's just how my brain works. So I really, you know, you have those parents that overcoach. he's not really into sports. I'm the mom that's like, I have to really keep it in check about the academics. Like, C's are fine. We're good. He's also 7. So, you know, maybe chill out, Laura.
Uh-oh.
He's going to be fine. I'm going to be fine.
Are you going to get him into jiu-jitsu?
You know, if he wants to, we used to probably more. He's getting fairly strong now. I should probably try it again. We used to like play fight a fair amount on the trampoline.
Jokes right now?
No. I can still take him. But that's the funny thing is like, I'll tell him, I'm like, there's going to come a day when you're going to be able to beat me.
Oh, he will.
But I'm like, I think it might take longer than you think. You might have to be 14-ish. Depends on how big how big and strong he is.
Is he has he brought home his first girlfriend yet?
Actually, yes, he had one, and he's very like
he's gonna be he's a good looking kid. He's gonna be a little heartbreaker, no?
Yeah, well, and he like
be careful.
He's socially precocious, so like at recess, that was the thing. And he's in 2nd grade now, but back in kindergarten, he came home one day. He's like, "Mom, you would not believe what happened at recess." He's like, "I had to protect my girls. Like, you know, so and so was trying to push him," and he's like, "So." I stood there. I was like, "Not my girls," you know, and I was like, "Well, you have multiple girls." He's like, "Yeah, I'm dating 2 girls." So yeah, he's already. Yes, there was, and 2? I was like, and I asked him, I was like, "Did they know? Did they both know?" But he's like, "Oh yeah, no, they both know. They're fine with it." I'm like, all right, we'll move to Utah.
Have you met these 2?
They're no longer in his life. You know, it was kindergarten. He switched schools. He's kind of going through a little more of a. I wouldn't say girls are yucky phase, but a little bit.
I feel like you go up and down. Like
yeah, I think he's a little bit more like a little bit more standoffish about, which I'm fine with.
How are you going to vet his future girlfriends when they're?
Oh my God.
Oh.
Can I tell you something? It is terrifying. I know that's like the running joke of like, especially UFC dads, right? Like, I'm gonna, you know. It's just as scary to be a boy mom or a boy parent.
Interesting.
Because. I mean, we don't want to get in all this, but like guys in this day and age have to be incredibly careful with how they handle themselves in any situation, but especially when it comes to interacting with females. And it's not something that you had to do this level of like checking yourself. And I'm not saying that a certain degree of that is not a good idea, but like my husband was joking the other day. He's like, fuck, when I thought I liked a girl, I would just run up and try to kiss her. And if she, you know, pushed me away, then I'd be like, oh, you know,
that's like your husband would get canceled.
That's what I'm saying. Like, no, I know he would.
But I know exactly what you're talking about. Because my mom is the same. She's of the same. I think she's about the same age as your husband.
Yeah.
And so, she comes from that same school of thought. You know.
Yeah.
For her, it's like she would be insulted if a guy asked her if she could kiss her, asked her if she could. If it was under the assumption that she was, you know,
I mean,
consenting already.
You probably know my sense of humor now.
Yes.
And my husband's is even more so. So we were driving the car. Burke was not in the car the other day. He's like, how the fuck do people get to third base these days? Like, do you bring a tab with permission? Hey, will you sign this before?
Can I tell you something? And this I can actually make public knowledge because my guest spoke about it openly on my show. I can say his name. I don't know if you're familiar with Harry Jowsey.
No.
He's like a big TikToker. He was on Too Hot to Handle on Netflix.
Okay.
He's like a super good looking guy. Yeah. He spoke openly on my show. I'm gonna have to double check if he spoke openly on my show or if it was after. So before I edit or not edit this out, he has a lawyer that has drafted up a consent agreement that every girl he hooks up with before they hook up, he makes them sign it because he's a very well known. He's got millions of followers, this, that, and the other thing. And in a way, when he was telling me this, I was like, dude, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Also, like, what a vibe kill, too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think, especially when you know Harry, like, this guy is nothing but respectful.
Yeah.
You know, I think you can tell. Anyways, but it's a very interesting conversation, I think. And I think that, you know, it's funny that the way your husband put it, but it's like people, all the top athletes, just so you know, like, all of the NFL players.
Yeah.
I've talked to like a lawyer who represents a ton of, I won't say what team. He sells them at $10,000 a pop.
There you go. But what do you do when you're in college and you can't afford that lawyer? You know, do you just like draw up your own contract? I mean,
I'll speak to it as someone who's in college. And I think hopefully it's interesting for other people. It's like you definitely you need to know 100% who you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And for me personally, it's like I won't take that risk unless first of all, like hopefully you set your standards high for the people. But you know, it's definitely like it's crazy. There's this thing for high schoolers in New York City. I'll give you a great example. Where the high school that I went to, shout out to Beacon, is one of the best, is a very good public high school. And there was a page, I don't know if it was necessarily for Beacon or whatever, but it was a page that high schoolers in New York City were running on their own that were taking anonymous tips about boys who had crossed a line. Now, the way it worked is tomorrow you don't like me.
Yeah.
You can write to that page and you can say Felix did X, Y, and Z.
That's what I'm saying.
And they won't like ask for proof. They won't ask anything. They will and they'll post
Put it out?
They'll post it with my name, and so I agree. You know, it's a scary world in that sense. You know.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I think it's great that people get called out on when they definitely cross that line.
When they do cross the line.
But I think that it's so counterintuitive to that movement to have every situation, especially when you have high schoolers running an anonymous Instagram page.
I have a great example of this that I'm not concerned at all to talk about. So when the whole Tanya Evinger incident happened, which you're familiar with, right? Yes.
Just so people that are listening.
It was back when I was working for Invicta. Tanya Evinger, an openly gay athlete, won a championship, and she thought it'd be funny. Like I was in cage interviewing her after she won, and she grabs the mic. I had already like yelled. She grabs the mic. She's like, "I want to win Moment of the Year," and she grabs me and like gives me a huge kiss on the mouth on television. I thought it was hilarious. People came at her with pitchforks and torches because they're like, this is sexual assault. And it sparked like that, if that had been a guy, he'd be fired and which is probably true. But this is the thing that drove me crazy about that situation. Like it happened to me and I found it funny. She knew me well. She didn't know me that well, but she knew me well enough to know I would find it funny. I did not feel threatened. It was it was on television. Like we weren't in some dark alley. Mm-hmm. And people were like, that's sexual assault. Like, and then they start having these conversations about like, if that had been whatever. I don't like equating that with the actual sexual assaults that I have heard my friends experience, people close to me experience. Like, I personally know people who have been raped by strangers in a very horrible and violent way. And so I get we all want to be safe and protected or whatever, but like you cannot tell me that is the same as that. Like those are two different things.
It goes back to the gray,
Yeah.
And that different things have to be called different, like different criminal acts have to be called like there's.
And I'm sorry, but like waking up the next day and going, shit, I should not have slept with that guy is not, well, he was a little pushy. I didn't really want to sleep with him. Oh man, I really didn't, like you start to have this conversation with like, that's not the same thing. Yeah. It's not.
No, I think it's important for people like, to people that are smart and articulate like yourself to say that, because I think that, it's a weird world that we're in these days. And like even my mom jokes about it. She's like, well, if you're at work and you see like when I was at work back when she worked, and I saw like a hot guy at work, I want him to hit on. I want to go to drinks with him after. But she's like, does that like now there's levels, right? You don't want your male colleague to put you in an uncomfortable position. But there's also those moments where my mom's like, I want him to go get a drink with him after. Like how does that work? Felix?
You can't have it both ways. Like you can't want any sort of like traditional, like I want a man who's willing to go the extra mile and woo me and chase me, but don't chase me too much, like that has to be so fucking confusing being a guy in the state. I'm just glad I don't have to deal with it.
As a mom, how do you educate your child knowing this?
Well, he's 7, so I haven't gone there yet.
You got some time. Now, granted, maybe, I will say this.
I'll be calling you back in a couple of years.
I'll talk to Burke. But I will say that, I think that we're also there's like also pushback on that kind of extremity.
Yeah.
And I think that like we're looking at obviously a very polarized country where there's the right and the left, and then they're either on one side or you're on the other, and either you feel this way about sexual assault, you feel that way about sexual assault. But I think now there's also like people are so just like repulsed by the two ends of the spectrum that they're meeting somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna go back to like, I think it's awesome that we're calling bad people out for being bad people.
You have to.
You have to.
And those things do exist.
Of
like
course.
the shit that went on in Hollywood, it exists.
Yes.
It needs to be brought
100%.
out to light. It needs to be
100%.
Talked about and never happen again. But you can't start throwing everything in that bucket and pretending that all of those incidents are equal, because they're just not.
100%.
Yeah.
But how do you, I'm curious, just like as a mom, like obviously you're not there yet, but it's just like, what do you imagine that conversation could look like? Because I'm sure a lot of moms are in that same boat where they have a few years and whatever, but it's still like, it's a conversation. And obviously your son is very well mannered and has two great parents. So he has the proper education. It's not like he's coming from a place where, maybe there's no present mom or dad or,
I think everything has to be done with the moral compass. If you have to lie about anything, and I don't mean like a black and white lie, if you have to like curve your story to get a girl to like you,
right,
you need to check yourself. Like, so if you're lying to get a girl to like you or to be in some sort of situation with you, check yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like if she is saying things like, no, I don't think so, like I'm tired, I want to go home, fucking listen when she says that, because she's trying to be nice. Right. And doesn't want to make you mad, and she might still want to see you the next day. She's just like, in this moment, this is not happening. Like, it's just about being a polite, good person.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and to your point earlier, having a certain standard about the type of people that you're associating to begin with, because I think that takes a lot of this out of the equation.
It vets them.
Yes. Maybe let me talk to them all first.
Are you? What do you imagine that when he brings like his first serious girlfriend? You think you're gonna be that mom who's like,
"Oh, you're making me nauseous." So I don't want.
I think no, but I'm trying to picture you in that situation.
It's just hard. It's hard to think about because he's just now like becoming a little tween. You know what I mean? Because kids, I think nowadays are growing up a little bit faster. I keep him off.
Does he have a phone?
No, God, no.
When's he allowed?
And I'm gonna be one of those parents. A phone? But
you're gonna watch. I bet you'll cave at least a year or two earlier than you're saying right now.
Maybe,
but when he's begging you, he's like, "Mom, all my friends have a phone. I don't have a phone."
Well, if he gets a phone, it's gonna have restrictions on it, and like
no data.
He gets exposed to a lot. Like, it's not like I'm raising him in a bubble, and it's funny because I think. Probably compared to his peers, especially because he goes to a Christian school also, he probably knows way more about sex than any other 7-year-old boy. Part of that is because we live on a farm, and like those conversations naturally take place.
Really? Farm life.
Well, when you see a bull getting on a cow, and your son's like, "Oh, what's he doing?"
Gotta explain.
You gotta explain, or like when you see, I mean, I can't believe this is going on the radio, but like. My 7-year-old can like drive through the herd and being like, oh, that cow's vulva is like really puffy, so like she's gonna have her baby in the next week or so.
Not a lot of 7-year-olds could do that. I couldn't do that at 7.
No, not a lot of 7-year-olds have ever heard the word vulva.
No, yeah,
but he knows the difference between a vagina and a vulva, and like where babies come from. And he has asked a lot of questions about how he was born and what happened, and I give him accurate information.
The PG version?
Yeah. And then like if he keeps asking, then I'll give him accurate information. And like I'll let him, if he wants to keep drilling down, I'll go there. But yeah, it's usually like, whatever version. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right though about being a mom of a boy. Because, I, of course, and you'll probably get to this point at some point in time where you're going to butt heads because you're going to deal with a teenager. And I remember when I did that with my mom as well. And then you kind of appreciate it when you get a little bit older. But, I think in retrospect and in getting older, you appreciate, I have so much, obviously I love my mom, but I have so much respect and really just, I'm impressed at being able to deal with a young teenage boy. Because when those hormones start kicking in, they want to do everything their way. And, Going for a trip.
I've told him from a very young age, we had what this is like when he was 3, so really little, 3, 4, 5. We'd be talking and hanging out, and I wanted him to know really early on that he could come to me with anything, because I think that's the key to keeping bad decisions from being made, because when you start to hide things because you think your parents wouldn't approve or would find it shameful or whatever, that's when you can start having bad things happen. So I wanted him to know, like, you can come to me with anything. And so I said, listen, we're going to have what's called the unicorn code. So if you come to me and you say, Mom, I'm calling the unicorn code, that means that you can tell me anything about any situation, and I'm going to promise you I will not get angry about it. We'll handle it. We'll figure it out. And I'm not going to get mad. And so I would give him examples. Now, again, he's 3. So at that time, it was more like if you were at a friend's house and they had an older brother, and that older brother started watching a movie that you knew that you probably shouldn't be watching and that Mom and Dad wouldn't like, how would you handle that situation? Like just role playing through stuff like that. Or even at that age, it's more like literal safety stuff. Like you're at a friend's house and they have a swimming pool and your friend's like, hey, let's jump in the swimming pool because my parents aren't looking. What do? Trying to like help him think through those situations. But my goal at the end of it is like, listen, dude, if you're in college and you got a fucking dead body in your trunk, you're calling Mom, okay?
And blackout and
I will, if you're blackout drunk somewhere and you need someone to pick you up, it's gonna be me or Dad, okay? We'll talk about it later. We'll deal with it later. Right. I'm just gonna come get you and it'll be fine. I just want him to know that. Dead bodies, I'm here for him.
Hopefully no dead bodies.
No, I'm just kidding. No dead bodies.
I don't know what
I was
school he's
joking.
going to,
No dead bodies. No dead bodies.
Well, to wrap things up.
Yeah. We've covered a lot.
We've covered a lot. I asked you last time when you were on the show, legacy. But I think now it's more, what I'm curious is, because you have your professional goals and your personal goals and the way you view your life, I think instead of going like to the end of your life and what you hope, I guess more short term, like when you're 45 or 50, and you're at the place that you're at, what do you hope that place not only looks like as a mother, professionally,
Yeah, I think more than anything, it's a feeling that I'm chasing, I guess, and that feeling is knowing that I've been impactful in people's lives, whether that's through my work or it's through my home life, but knowing that I have, like, in some positive way left an imprint in such a way that if I were to die tomorrow, that the thought of me would be one of like love and positivity, and that there wouldn't be any, but she was kind of a bitch, I'm just kidding. I think it's more that than anything. And so with that comes, the respect I'm striving for professionally. And just the love and example that I want to show my son and be toward my husband too.
Well, I can confidently say that there are a lot of people that already feel that way about you and would, God forbid, and would think those things about you. And I think from my perspective, I thank you for not just, and I get inspired by my guests in different ways. Everyone, I try to take a little something from every guest, and I've definitely taken a lot from you the first time that we talked, and now the second time that I had you on my show, and it motivates me. I think people, seeing somebody get one thing that's very difficult to get and then want something else, lights a fire in myself. So I thank you for that, and I thank you for taking the time and, being someone that honestly I look up to, and I'm sure a lot of young boys and girls, you are an inspiration already and are continuing to do so. So I'm just excited for this next future, this more healthy life. And thank you.
I'm excited too. And I hope, like you said, that this all gets clipped up and we can circle back to this conversation in who knows how long, maybe a year, maybe more, who knows. And yeah, I'd be like, hey, remember that time we talked about? We'll just keep doing it. We'll just keep doing it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well,
and thank you for the Island Boys.
That I'm
above
excited.
all else.
I'm excited for. Laura Sanko, everybody. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't done so already, please make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Instagram at felix.levine. And if you have something to say, please leave a comment.